So now, let's look at the 2009 swine flu hoax. I nearly read swindle there, and that's what it was. It was a big swindle. Yeah. So, how did the whole thing start off? Yeah. So there are a few people, about 100 people in Mexico who got a flu, yeah, and how this was blown up, I don't know. But it's very murky. The Center for Disease Control reported a new influenza H1N1 virus. So of course, you know, this mythical H1N1 virus that caused the millions of deaths in the Spanish flu, which wasn't the Spanish flu. You know, it wasn't Spanish and it wasn't flu, and it probably wasn't a virus. Okay, probably a bacterial disease, and very likely a horrible disease that jumped species from horses. So anyway, so yeah, so they used this to scare us silly, yeah, for 100 years. And so they thought that, so yeah, it's going to spread worldwide, it's going to kill millions of people, blah, blah, blah. So on the 11th of June 2009, it was declared by the WHO, World Health Organization, to be a phase 6 pandemic virus, maximum threat. Yeah, maximum threat. And in November 2009, WHO announced 65 million doses of vaccine had been administered. 65 million. So these were all experimental vaccines. There were 4 drug companies that made vaccines, all experimental. And so there was a Swiss company, a UK company, which made one vaccine for the UK, one for Canada, and there was an American company. Okay, and so all of these vaccines had very nasty adverse effects. But the thing is, before the drug companies who made the vaccines insisted that they be identified by the government. You've heard this before, haven't you? Yeah, rerun of 1976. And yeah, so they're all identified, so which means that anybody harmed by the vaccine can't sue the drug manufacturer. I mean, in the US, if you can sue the drug manufacturer, you get millions, yeah? But if you're identified, you can only get a claim from the government, you know, and so you get a lot less. GlaxoSmithKline made 1 billion of sales of the vaccine, £1 billion in 3 months. When the vaccination process was at its height. So let's look at the vaccines. You have 4 different vaccines. In the UK, pandemics made by GlaxoSmithKline. All these vaccines are withdrawn, of course, now. Yeah. 6 million doses given worldwide, and the adverse effect was narcolepsy, which means you fall asleep at the drop of a hat. You can be walking along and suddenly fall asleep. They found out what it did. It in some people it wiped out 70,000 neurons in a part of the brain which produces the wakefulness hormone, hypocretin. So in some people that's what it caused, and they got narcolepsy. And some of those people who had narcolepsy, one of the things you also get can be a sudden attack of loss of control of your muscles, and this can be triggered by strong emotions. So if laughing, if somebody makes you laugh, if you've got this narcolepsy, you could suddenly lose control of your muscles and end up in a heap on the floor. Yeah, so those people can't sue GlaxoSmithKline, They managed eventually to get some compensation out of the government, but it was like getting blood out of a stone. First of all, they had to prove that it was, that the vaccine had caused the narcolepsy, and that was an uphill struggle. And then it went to appeal and counter-appeal and blah, blah, blah. Eventually, they've got £120,000 compensation. But that's your lot. That's all you get, for a lifetime of disability. And and GlaxoSmithKline are laughing, So, so that's pandemics in the UK. Then you've got Focatria, made by Swiss company Novartis. And the headline adverse effects, there are many adverse effects. Headline adverse effects are hives and intestinal disorders. So I don't know how many people got that. Where was that made? Where was that administered? I'm not sure where that was administered. But anyway, so next one is Selvapan, made by Baxter in the US. Adverse reactions. Frequent joint pain, muscle pain, fever, chills, fatigue, nausea, hardening, erythema, swelling, and bleeding at the injection site. Very frequent pain at the injection site. And then we've got Aripanrix, which again is made by GlaxoSmithKline, and that was given in Canada. Adverse reaction was allergic reaction, which can result in an anaphylaxis, otherwise known as anaphylactic shock. So that could kill you, So, total profits between, have I written it down here? No, I haven't. Total profits, 7 to 10 billion pounds of dollars of profits, according to the bank, to JP Morgan Bank. So now, the interesting thing here is that some of the experts who were advising the World Health Organization on the pandemic had declarable financial ties with drug companies that were producing antivirals and influenza vaccines. Oh, by the way, Roche, the Swiss company Roche, persuaded the WHO to recommend stockpiling of Tamiflu, a drug for flu, for seasonal flu, and for, I guess, so-called hoax swine flus. And the WHO recommended to all the governments that they stockpile Tamiflu in case of pandemics. And $20 billion of sales of Tamiflu. And it turns out this Tamiflu is totally ineffective. It's no more, if this was in a Cochrane review, the famous Cochrane reviews, they do meta-analysis of lots of different studies. And they found that it had no more effect than a placebo. But the other thing is, these vaccines, flu vaccines, are always given to young people and old people and infirm people, people with diseases. So these were given to young people, and they desire lots of people given Tamiflu. Lots of young people had psychiatric problems. Some of them even committed suicide. So that's Tamiflu, 20 billion of sales. In January 2010, Wolfgang Wodak, who was a German deputy who was actually a doctor, and he chairs the Health Committee at the Council of Europe. He said that major drug companies had organised a campaign of panic to put pressure on the World Health Organization to declare a false pandemic to sell vaccines. Wodak said the WHO's false pandemic flu campaign is one of the greatest medicine scandals of the century. We've seen a few others, He said that the false pandemic campaign began in May 2009 in Mexico City, when 100 or so normal reported influenza cases were declared to be the beginning of a threatening new pandemic, although he said there was little scientific evidence for this. Nevertheless, he argued that the WHO, in cooperation with some pharmaceutical companies and their scientists, redefined pandemics removing the statement that an enormous amount of people have contracted the illness or died from its existing definition, and replacing it by stating simply that there has to be a virus spreading beyond borders and to which people have no immunity. So I'll flash that up in case you didn't get all that. Well, in the video when I'm, while I'm saying that, we'll flash it up. Okay, yeah, so between $7 and $10 billion of profits. And of course, the billions, the billion of pounds in those 3 months would have come from the NHS budget, all paid by mugs like me. So that's it for pandemics, and I'll see you next time. So click the link to subscribe, and don't forget to click something else, which I've forgotten. But yeah, click subscribe, and another thing you need to click anyway.